You can't work all day with beautiful women and be doing love scenes and not have crushes. I knew how handsome he was. You can't go to the film and work all day with beautiful women and be as handsome as that.
Dean Martin was a beloved 20th century entertainer, smooth crooner, witty comedian, Rat Pack icon, and TV star. With effortless charm and talent, he won over audiences for decades. Behind his suave smile, however, was a man facing deep heartache and emotional struggles. His marriage to second wife Jeanne Biegger was filled with glamour, passion, and ultimately, profound sorrow. What began as a seemingly perfect union unraveled into a final chapter marked by grief, illness, and loss. Dean's tragic decline and Jeanne's eventual passing defied the Hollywood fairy tale image fans cherished. Yet, through it all, an emotional bond endured. Join us as we explore the painful truths, haunting tragedies, and lasting connection that defined their final years together. Dean Martin wasn't just a performer. He was an entire vibe, always cool, effortless, and in control. With a cocktail in hand and a wisecrack on his lips, he charmed audiences and ruled Hollywood. His rise to fame began with humble beginnings, laying the groundwork for the persona that would charm the industry for decades to come. This wouldn't be a tribute and insight into his life if we didn't take a look at the stages that initially molded him. So let's dive in. A not-so-eloquent beginning in the middle of nowhere. Dean Martin's name wasn't always that. He was born Dino Paul Crocetti on the 7th of June 1917 in Steubenville, Ohio. His family was of Italian descent. His father, Gaetano, worked as a barber, and his mother, Angela, was a first-generation Italian-American. He was raised in a household where only Italian was spoken. He didn't begin learning English until he was around 5, which made school particularly difficult. Sadly, this meant that he struggled to communicate properly with his age mates, and in the world of kids, this often meant that he would become the prime target for bullies, often feeling like an outsider in a place he didn't belong. Naturally, the school became his least favorite place, even admitting that he didn't enjoy it. Though he would often joke about the situation years later, it was clear to those listening closely that this was one of the sore points of his childhood and one that dug deep. By the 10th grade, he'd had enough, dropping out and walking away from traditional education forever, which set him on a path full of uncertainty and hustle. Now out of school, he tried to follow in his father's footsteps, but that didn't work out. He worked a series of odd jobs like being a gas station attendant, milk delivery man, and drugstore clerk. But none of it sparked any real passion. What instead caught his interest was boxing. He stepped into the ring under the name Kid Crocetti. It wasn't the kind of glamorous life you'd expect, according to him. He won only 1 out of 12 matches. The sport took a toll on his body. His nose was broken, his lips scarred, and his hands permanently damaged from not being able to afford proper gear. This career path wasn't looking any brighter, but he'd come to find that his battles still waited for him outside the ring, and they were about to hit harder. After relocating to New York, he moved in with fellow entertainer Sonny King. Struggling to make ends meet, they turned their apartment into an underground fight venue. Guests paid to watch them go head-to-head in bare-knuckle brawls right in the living room. Dean once knocked out Sonny in a real match, but it became clear this wasn't the future he wanted. The bruises were wearing him thin, and he soon started looking for something else to use his time on. When boxing didn't work out, he landed a job in a shady casino hidden behind a tobacco shop. It was illegal, but it paid the bills. He worked as a dealer for blackjack and roulette, immersed in the smoky haze of underground nightlife. It was there that something unexpected happened. He found an innate talent that didn't require him to fracture his bone for sport or amusement. He could sing. At first, he sang casually for co-workers, but his smooth, rich voice quickly caught on, and soon the right person heard it. That person was bandleader Ernie McKay. He had noticed Dean and invited him to join his group, a proposition he quickly accepted. This choice launched him into the nightclub scene, performing across Ohio under the name Dino Martini, a nod to opera singer Nino Martini. In 1938, he joined Sammy Watkins's band and hit the road. Watkins suggested that he change his name to Dean Martin because it had a better ring to it, and so the iconic name was born. By 1943, he had moved to New York and was singing full-time. The road wasn't easy. He was new to a very competitive industry and had to earn every bit of attention he could, carefully shaping his image to draw more attention. He wasn't just creating a music career, he was crafting a character, and soon that character became larger than life. Dean's stage persona was very distinct and consistent. He'd appear with a drink in hand, looking like he didn't have a care in the world. The style wasn't original, it was an image he borrowed heavily from Phil Harris, a showman who built a reputation around being a boozy womanizer. But he added his twist on it, and audiences adored it. He became known as the King of Cool. Yet the public image masked a more introverted reality. Off stage, he was quiet, even withdrawn. In a rare 1967 interview with journalist Oriana Fallacy, he admitted people often thought he was arrogant or aloof, but in reality, he just didn't know how to make small talk. Even after years of being in the spotlight and rubbing shoulders with the elites of high society, his early struggles with English still made him feel self-conscious and out of place. Behind the charm and confidence was a man who preferred silence to small talk, who felt more comfortable on stage than in a room full of people. That inner conflict between the cool confidence he often projected on stage and the deep insecurity he harbored in his mind followed him throughout his life. At the height of his emerging stardom, another nexus point in his tale will come up, one meeting that will shape quite a few things for him. Meeting Jerry Lewis, the comedy duo was born. In August 1944, everything changed when Dean met Jerry Lewis. The meeting happened at the Belmont Plaza Hotel in New York, where he was performing. After catching Jerry's act, Dean complimented him, saying, "You're a funny kid." That simple remark led to one of the most famous comedy partnerships in entertainment history. Dean and Jerry hit it off right away. They combined their acts and made their official debut as a team in Atlantic City at the 500 Club on the 24th of July, 1946. But the first night was a total flop and not what they expected. The audience didn't laugh, and the club owner even threatened to fire them unless the next performance gained some traction with the crowd. In a desperate move, they brainstormed in an alley behind the club. Jerry decided to play a goofy, clumsy busboy who interrupted Dean's singing by dropping dishes and causing chaos. Dean would respond by tossing bread rolls at him. It was zany, unpredictable, and just the right kind of off-brand performance that would quickly become a hit. The crowd loved it, and they were finally here to stay. Their chemistry was electric. They bounced jokes off each other, created improvised skits, and delivered slapstick routines that felt spontaneous. Their act didn't just entertain the crowd. It felt like the crowd got a bird's-eye view into the life of two actual best friends goofing around in real life. The authenticity of it made people love them even more. They began performing up and down the East Coast and soon landed a gig at the iconic Copacabana in New York. In 1948, They made their television debut on the premiere episode of The Ed Sullivan Show, which was at the time called The Toast of the Town, alongside legends like Rogers and Hammerstein. To sharpen their act, they brought in writers Norman Lear and Ed Simmons, names that would later become legendary in television. Their influence helped Dean and Jerry transition from nightclub acts to radio, and eventually onto the biggest stage possible for entertainment, Hollywood. In 1949, they signed a film deal with Paramount for My Friend Irma, playing comic relief characters. Their agent, Abby Gressler, negotiated a unique contract that allowed them to produce one movie a year under their own company, York Productions, while keeping control of their live performances, records, and radio shows. This level of creative freedom helped them become millionaires. In his memoir, Dean and Me, Jerry called Dean one of the great comic geniuses of all time. Their bond was real, and not just something they kept on stage. Jerry even stood as Dean's best man when he remarried in 1949. Unfortunately, even with the success and laughter, time and ambition could unravel even the strongest bonds, and cracks were inevitably forming between them. As time passed, the magic started to fade. Critics began to point out that their films were becoming formulaic, and Dean grew frustrated with playing the same type of character in every movie. He wanted something more, something different. Dean began to pull back emotionally and creatively during his final years performing with Jerry Lewis. While they were filming Three Ring Circus in 1954, the tension between them boiled over. The breaking point came when Look magazine published a cover photo featuring Jerry Lewis, alongside actress Cherie North. Dean had been completely cropped out, and he felt insulted and snubbed, something that completely infuriated him. Publicist Jack Keller recalled Dean storming onto the set with the magazine in hand. He threw it at Jack and let loose in anger. Even Jerry noticed the shift in Dean's mood. One day, Dean simply told him, "If you ever want to call it quits, just say the word." The fun was gone. Dean no longer felt like he was part of a team. Later, he would reflect on that time, saying, "Why bother showing up on time when there's nothing for me to do?" In Three Ring Circus, his character didn't even get a song until more than halfway into the movie. And when he finally did, it was an old tune sung to a bunch of animals. The magic was gone, replaced by imbalance and resentment. Still, he remained professional and fulfilled the rest of their contractual obligations. But on the 25th of July, 1956, exactly 10 years after they first joined forces, he quietly walked away. He exited the partnership with dignity, but there was no turning back. After parting ways with Jerry, his career didn't stall. Instead, his career caught a new draft. He poured his energy into his solo music and acting ventures and quickly became a household name in Las Vegas. There, he fell in with the most legendary group of entertainers of the era, the Rat Pack. The crew included the legendary Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., Joey Bishop, and Peter Lawford. They were famous for their glamorous lifestyle filled with late-night parties, women, booze, and an endless supply of charm. But Dean stood out, even among them. To the outside world, he looked like the wildest of the group. Frank once joked that he'd had a 10 because he found a bar with a skylight, but in truth, Dean was far more reserved than people realized. While his friends partied into the morning hours, he was usually the first to head home. Tom Dreesen, a comedian who opened for Frank, said Dean's low-key behavior sometimes irritated Frank. But over time, Frank came to admire him for doing things his way. Dean didn't try to keep up. He just moved at his own pace and stayed true to himself. Dean and Frank shared more than just stages. They soon had a deep, genuine friendship. Dean's daughter, Diana, once said that watching the two perform together was magical. You could see the love and mutual respect in their eyes. Their closeness extended beyond the stage, as even their families had started to act like extended relatives. Though Dean Martin would go on to become a smooth and stylish icon, his background was far more rugged. Remember, before he was famous, he had delivered illegal liquor as a bootlegger and fought in brutal, bare-knuckle boxing matches. So when he later found himself performing for audiences connected to the mob, he wasn't all too concerned or skittish with his new audience. Unlike other members of the Rat Pack who tiptoed around mobsters, he wasn't afraid to draw a line. After one performance, a group of gangsters approached him to thank him for doing them a favor. He didn't smile or play along. He simply stared them down and said, "I did it for Frank," then walked away. That moment showed that he wasn't intimidated. His rough past had shaped him and molded him into a refined block of steel. Another thing he perfected was drinking. On stage, he always seemed to have a glass of whiskey in hand. He slurred his words just enough to keep the illusion going. Sammy Davis Jr. once joked, "If this doesn't straighten my hair, nothing will." But the truth was, he wasn't drinking alcohol at all. His glass usually held Martinelli's apple juice. According to those who knew him best, including backup singer Patty Grybo and even Jerry Lewis himself, the whole drunk persona was an act. Dean told the Saturday Evening Post he drank only a fraction of what people thought. The illusion of intoxication was part of the performance, and it worked. When NBC approached Dean in the 1960s with an offer to star in his variety show, he accepted, but only on very specific conditions. He insisted on working only one day a week, refused to rehearse, and demanded full ownership of the show once it aired. Amazingly, NBC agreed. He rarely attended rehearsals himself. Instead, he had a stand-in run through the entire show with the cast and crew. On occasion, he'd watch from his dressing room, but only if there wasn't a football game on. Yet, when the cameras rolled, he was right there, confident and charming. The Dean Martin Show aired from 1965 to 1974 and attracted more than 40 million viewers. Audiences loved his easy, off-the-cuff style. He once said, "The reason this show is a hit is because it's just me up there. There's nothing fake about it." Even Elvis Presley, who wasn't known for idolizing other singers, admired him. Though he had a famously tense relationship with Frank Sinatra, Elvis saw Dean as a kind of musical hero. Later, Elvis performed Dean's hit "Everybody Loves Somebody" at a show with Dean in the audience. Despite his laid-back personality, he wasn't much for intellectual pursuits, and perhaps this had to do with his traumatic school experience and experience with education. He famously said the only book he'd ever read cover to cover was Black Beauty. But he loved comic books, and one of his proudest fan moments was meeting Bob Kane, the creator of Batman. Dean even starred in a comic series with Jerry Lewis, The Adventures of Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis, which ran for 40 issues in the 1950s. Perhaps one of the most interesting arcs in Dean's life outside his traumatic experience in school and career link-ups is his romantic life, specifically his second, but let's start with the first. His attempts and failures at building a home. Before the fame, the Rat Pack, and the Hollywood headlines, Dean Martin had someone at his side cheering him on, and that was his first wife, Elizabeth MacDonald. Their marriage marked the beginning of his family life, long before he became a household name. The two met in the early 1940s, and in 1941, they tied the knot. At the time, he was still struggling to make a name for himself as a nightclub singer and comedian, performing in small venues and hustling for steady gigs. Betty came from a respectable family in Ridley Park, Pennsylvania, and their relationship moved quickly. Together, they started building a life while his career slowly gained traction. Their marriage resulted in 4 children: Craig, Claudia, Gail, and Deanna. As his fame began to rise through his partnership with Jerry Lewis, she played the role of a traditional homemaker, raising their children while Dean traveled, performed, and eventually became a sensation in show business. Success soon came with strain, as it most commonly did in Hollywood. With Dean's new lifestyle came long hours away from home, endless temptations, and growing emotional distance. She struggled with the pressures of being married to a rising star and the fast-paced world that came with it. According to those close to the couple, the marriage began to fall apart under the weight of his growing fame and the changes it brought to their once humble life. In 1949, after 8 years of marriage, they got divorced. Just 1 week after the divorce was finalized, he married his second wife, Jeanne Biegger, making it clear that his heart had already moved on. Betty was awarded custody of the children initially, but as her struggles, including rumored alcohol dependency, became more serious, custody was eventually transferred to Dean and Jeanne. While she faded from the public spotlight, her role in Dean's early life was undeniable. She had been with him when he was still finding his voice, still building his identity as an entertainer. Their love didn't last, but it was the beginning of Dean Martin's journey as a husband and father. As mentioned, Dean married Dorothy Jeanne Biegger on the 1st of September 1949. Jeanne was a stunning model and former Orange Bowl queen, known not just for her beauty but for her elegance and poise. Their wedding was held at the home of a famous Hollywood club owner and attended by some of the biggest names in showbiz. Jerry Lewis, Dean's comedic partner at the time, stood by him as his best man. The love story began a year earlier, on New Year's Eve in Miami. Jeanne didn't recognize Dean or Jerry when they first met, but as she later recalled to biographer Nick Tosches, their connection was instantaneous. "We locked eyes, and I knew. We just fell madly in love." Throughout their 24-year marriage, the couple had 3 children: Dean Paul, Richie, and Gina. She also became stepmother to Dean's 4 children from his previous marriage, making them a family of 9. Dean often joked about his growing brood in his comedy routines. One of his most famous lines was, "I've got 7 kids. The 3 words you hear most around my house are hello, goodbye, and I'm pregnant." Despite the humorous take, Dean and Jeanne's family life appeared solid, at least from the outside. They were one of Hollywood's most admired couples. As his fame skyrocketed during the 1950s and 60s, she was frequently seen by his side at premieres, events, and social gatherings. Together, they embodied glamour. He was now a leading man in films, a chart-topping singer, and the beloved host of The Dean Martin Show. He was also a member of the legendary Rat Pack, alongside Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr., an elite group known for their charm, talent, and wild nights in Vegas. But all the success in the world couldn't keep their marriage from splitting down the middle. The demands of fame, constant travel, and rumors of his infidelities quietly ate away at their relationship. On the 10th of December 1969, she issued a public statement announcing their separation. Their divorce was finalized in 1973 after 24 years together. Surprisingly, it was he who filed for divorce, a rare move in Hollywood's golden age, where public appearances were often maintained for reputation's sake. When asked why, he replied, "I know it's the gentlemanly thing to let the wife file, but then, everybody knows I'm no gentleman." Despite the end of their marriage, Jeanne and Dean remained close. Their bond, built on decades of shared life and children, endured long after the legal papers were signed. This closeness would prove vital in later years, especially when tragedy later struck their family. In 1973, not long after his divorce from Jeanne, Dean married for the third and final time. His bride was Catherine May Hawn, a 26-year-old receptionist at a Beverly Hills hair salon. The match surprised many in his circle, not only because she was much younger, but because she had little connection to the Hollywood world he lived in. The pair were introduced through a mutual friend, and despite their vastly different worlds, a whirlwind romance followed. He threw a lavish wedding full of celebrity guests. Frank Sinatra, naturally, was in attendance, along with other big names from the Rat Pack's circle. The ceremony had all the glitz of old Hollywood, but none of the staying power. Though they never had children together, he adopted her daughter, Sasha, treating her as his own. Yet, for all the outward appearances, the marriage was strained from the beginning. His friends later revealed that he never seemed truly committed to the relationship. While he may have hoped to find stability again, the connection didn't run deep. Within just 3 years, the couple quietly divorced. Catherine Hawn vanished from public life after the split. Unlike Jeanne, who remained part of Dean's inner circle, she played no role in his later years. For him, this final attempt at love through marriage seemed to mark the end of that chapter in his life. He never remarried again. In the years following his third divorce, he withdrew more from public life. He continued to perform for a time, but the sparkle had begun to fade. The most profound change came in 1987, when his beloved son with Jeanne, Dean Paul Martin Jr., tragically died in a military jet crash at the age of 35. The loss devastated him. Friends and colleagues noticed a visible change in him. He seemed broken, lost, and deeply burdened. It was during this dark time that Jeanne re-entered his life in a meaningful way. Though no longer married, she stood by him in his grief, offering the kind of emotional support only someone who had shared his life could give. Their shared pain over the loss of their son bound them together in a way that went far beyond marriage. Though they never rekindled their romance publicly, Jeanne and Dean spent time together during the final years of his life. Interestingly, the accusations of infidelity that ripped them apart would eventually be confirmed when Sandra Lansky, daughter of infamous mobster Meyer Lansky, revealed it. In her memoir, she revealed she had an affair with him while he was still married to Jeanne, and even while Jeanne was pregnant with their daughter, Gina. Sandra wrote, "I had never seen anything like Dean Martin's masculinity. We made love 6 times in one night. I counted." She added that they drank Coca-Cola between rounds and had an unspoken agreement never to discuss their personal lives. According to Sandra, she didn't even realize Jeanne was pregnant at the time. To the public, Dean's persona was that of a charming, lovable family man. The womanizing jokes were considered part of his act. But it seems the act was real, at least once. Final years, the end of a whirlwind life. After the death of his son, he was never the same. Though he maintained his signature smile and wit in public, those close to him saw a different side. Author William Keck, in his memoir, When You Step Upon a Star, Cringeworthy Confessions of a Tabloid Bad Boy, described his final years as filled with quiet sorrow. Keck recalled how Dean, despite the loss, would still say, "I'll be back on that stage one day. You'll see me." But those who knew him could tell he had lost his drive. The grief ran too deep. Impressionist and close friend Rich Little summed it up best, saying once he lost his son, that was the end of him. Jerry Lewis also noticed the shift. He revealed that Dean let himself go. The fun, loving, carefree performance style had turned into something darker. The pain was no longer masked by humor. It was out in plain sight. By 1993, his health was rapidly declining. As a lifelong heavy smoker, he was diagnosed with lung cancer at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. Though doctors said surgery could extend his life, Dean declined treatment. In early 1995, he officially retired from public life and spent his remaining days at home in Beverly Hills. On Christmas Day that year, he passed away from acute respiratory failure caused by emphysema at the age of 78. His death was deeply mourned. In Las Vegas, a city where Dean had left an unforgettable mark, the lights along the Strip were dimmed in his honor, which was a rare tribute. He was laid to rest at Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery in Los Angeles. On his crypt was a single line from his best-known song, "Everybody Loves Somebody Sometime." At his private funeral, attended by many celebrities, one moment stood out. In the middle of the service, the lights dimmed and the room fell silent. Then, Rosemary Clooney, his close friend and George Clooney's aunt, began to sing "Everybody Loves Somebody." According to William Keck, the moment was surreal. In a room full of stars, it was that simple, heartfelt song that captured who he was: a father, a friend, a heartbroken man who, despite all his fame, just wanted peace. What do you think of his life and romance? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. To enjoy more exciting videos, click play on the video on your screen. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you get notified when a new video is posted.